Hello and welcome to the research paper requirement of this course. I'm using the Blackboard shell for building construction for the fire service to demonstrate the elements of this paper in this video. But understand that if you are in the fire behavior course or in the chemistry of hazmat course, you'll be doing a parallel report that will follow very closely the format that you're witnessing here. Basically, the differences will be that the building construction course is going to be analyzing technical reports from the building construction safety team, which is a division of NIST. The fire behavior course will be looking at reports from NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. And the chemistry class will be looking at reports from the Chemical Safety Board. But otherwise, the process of doing the reports is going to be parallel for each. In each of the courses, the report requirement begins in Week 8, and the easiest way to find it is to navigate to Week 8 by clicking on the Week 8 tab in Blackboard. And in each week, you've probably already become familiar with the folder Homework for Next Time. And what you're going to see is starting in Week 8, there's an additional element within this folder. So for the building construction course, it's the NCST research paper, and again, for the other courses, it would either be the NIOSH research paper or the CSB, the Chemical Safety Board research paper. Basically, what's going to go on with this paper is each week between now and the end of the course, you'll be adding one element of the paper, which I will grade and return to you in draft format. Then the final submission will be the assembly of all of these elements into the final paper. If you keep up with the course schedule and submit a section each week, take the feedback that I've given you and make the appropriate corrections, there's no reason you can't have 100% on the final research paper. There's a detailed explanation as to how the paper will play out here in the NCST research paper folder in Week 8. So let's have a look at that. Again, this document kind of talks about why we're having you do this, and maybe now is a good time to address that. As you move through your career in the fire service, you're going to have to keep up to speed with new developments, and that's going to mean reading technical literature. And we all like to read the trade rags. You know, Fire Engineering, Firehouses are all great magazines, but that is not a peer-refereed or a peer-reviewed journal of actual science. And so the goal here is to prepare you to read scientific literature. Really, it's the research that is behind many of the things that you read in the trade magazines. So we're preparing you here to read basically academic or government documents and to try and interpret those so that you can learn as you proceed through your career. Remember that tactics will come and go. The things you read about in the trade magazines come and go and change with time. The underlying science, though, is immutable. It's true forever. And so we want you to understand the underlying science that is driving the other things that we encounter in the fire service. There's a note here about the context, and for each of these reports I give you a little bit of a history of the agency that you'll be researching, and then I talk about the assignments. So for this building construction report, the NCST separates their reports into 5 categories: blast and impact events, construction and in-service failures, earthquakes, fires, windstorms, and coastal inundations. And you can see here in the document there are hyperlinks that will take you there directly. There's a note here about the structure of the document, and it just kind of talks about how it will be constructed, and then a note about your audience. And you're really writing this for in-service firefighters. So you're not writing this for a general audience. You have some expectation of background in the fire industry. On the other hand, you are not writing this for the scientists and engineers that wrote the reports you are reading. They're technical experts. You wouldn't want to talk exactly the way they talk to your general audience. So please pay attention to that in the tone and content of your paper. Graphics, these are technical reports. Many technical things are better described graphically through pictures, through graphs, through diagrams, things like that. And I encourage you to lean heavily on the use of those artifacts to make this a better report. That's probably in many cases going to be the best way to get the information across. Other expectations, the paper needs to be mechanically sound. I'm sure you've heard this 100 times in English class. There are no spelling errors, there are no grammar errors, and I'm just going to leave it at that. You guys know what technically sound writing looks like. Works cited. So the story is, you would not, at this point in your career, be recognized as an expert on fire. In fact, if you think a little bit about kind of the standard for expert testimony in court, there's a certain benchmark that people have to meet to make that type of testimony. And if they don't meet that benchmark, they're not allowed to testify as experts. They're able to testify as what we would call fact witnesses. So if you think about fact witnesses, what fact witnesses can attest to is things that they've witnessed. They can only talk about facts. They are not able to render an opinion in court. Whereas an expert witness, someone who's been qualified as an expert, can give an expert professional opinion. So an example would be in arson investigation. Frequently, only fire protection engineers are able to give expert testimony as to how the fire behaved. Firefighters might be able to give fact testimony as to what they witnessed, but they're not going to be able to get into the nuts and bolts of how the fire worked. If you want to read more about that, kind of a contemporary issue in terms of who is allowed to give opinion and who is allowed to give fact, is Wisconsin's transition to a Daubert state. So Daubert was a court case in which a technical expert was challenged, and it set the standard for what it means to be able to give your opinion. Well, it's kind of the same thing in this paper. Because you are not qualified as an expert, you're not published as an expert, you are not allowed to give your opinion in this paper. So anything that could be contested, anything that is not a matter of fact, you need to support with citation from research or from another expert. So I'll expect you to use appropriate citations as you would in any research paper. Now, there may be some things for which you're not able to find supporting literature. And in that case, I would like your paper to at least include a description of an experiment that could be performed that would give you the information that you needed. So maybe you have, you're doing a report on a fireworks factory explosion, and you cannot find any literature to support that a cart rolling over spilled powder could ignite the powder. Well, then I want you to at least describe what type of experiment would be performed to try and arrive at a conclusion as to whether or not that was feasible. And experiments like this happen all the time. One that comes to mind is an experiment that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms did to determine if a cigarette could ignite gasoline vapors. They burned over 1,000 cigarettes in their laboratory and came to the conclusion that a burning cigarette by itself could not ignite gasoline vapors. Now, if a person had a lighter and they lit the cigarette, that might be a different situation, but that was not the case they were working on. So that's an example of an experiment that would be performed to try and arrive at some conclusion. Throughout this paper, I've provided resources for you. Many of them are from the online writing laboratory at Purdue University. It's a great resource, and here you can see a web link to it. There are several other web links throughout the course to help you with that. There is a rubric associated with this. It's a rubric that I got from another instructor at the college here who instructs in the English department. It's probably very typical of what you've seen in your other courses, and I'll leave it to you to go through that in detail. Here's a calendar of how the weeks will fold out, so you can see that this week is your introduction to the project. By the end of next week, you need to submit the title page and the APA format citations for this report, and then each week you'll be developing an element. Week 10 is graphics, week 11 is discussion of proximate causes, week 12 contributory, week 13 root causes, in week 14 you're going to make conclusions and recommendations. In week 15 you're going to develop the abstract, and then the final piece is just assembling all of those elements into the finished paper. And again, here's the rubric. I won't spend any time now going over it, but it's pretty standard to what you've likely encountered in the college. This is a checklist, and I would strongly advise that for everything you submit, you just cruise through this checklist and make sure you can say yes for all of the questions. And that concludes kind of the informational introduction to the paper. Now, for next week, what you'll be developing is your title page and your bibliography. And the title page is fairly straightforward. The title page, you're just simply going to open this template, which is a Microsoft Word document. And where it says Review of NCST Report, title of the NCST report, you're going to change the title. So let's go look at the NCST website. So there is a link right here in Blackboard. And I want to study, here are the hazards types. I want to study a building collapse due to an earthquake. And I want to look at the earthquake in Japan in 1995. So here is the technical report from NIST on that earthquake. And we would just simply copy this title and paste it into, and when I paste this, I want to strip it of its formatting, so I'm going to paste it as text only. And you can see I lost the J there. Okay. The your name, obviously you'll just type your name in. For date, you'll replace the date with the date that it's submitted. And that's all you need to do for this title page. You'll save it, and I will show you how to submit it here momentarily. For the bibliography, I've created a template here for you, and it's the same idea. So you can see that I've got an example of a citation of a government report. Obviously, you would remove this citation and you'd put in the citation to the NCST or NIOSH or CSB report that you're working on. And then you could actually delete where it says government document example. You can delete here where it says textbooks. Here I've entered the textbooks for the building construction class. I would leave those in there for the time being because you will likely use those as references in your paper. When it's all said and done, if you don't, just come back and delete those. Also, in the coming weeks, if you use another resource, just simply add it to this list so that it's ready to go when you submit the final paper. So this step here is really about making sure you're clear on how to appropriately cite your sources. To assist you with that, I have posted a link to the Bedford Bibliographer, which is perhaps a slightly more academically rigorous version of many of these bibliographers you find online. And so the story is, if you go to this Bedford Bibliographer, you can set up a free account, and basically by entering information about the text you wish to cite, it will generate the bibliography entry for you. And I think this is a great use of technology. Bibliography entries are kind of uninteresting work. It's a perfect thing to give to a computer. So I would encourage you to use that as a resource. Finally, I want to talk to you about how to submit these papers each week. If you click at the bottom of this folder in each week, there's going to be a place where you can submit online these documents. And if you click on that, it's going to ask if you wish to go into it. You say yes, continue. And for each of these, for this week, there are two questions. The first one is, it says attach the Word document that is your completed title page. You will browse your computer and you would go grab that document and say open, and it would attach that document here. And you'd do the same thing for your bibliography. When those are done, you say save and submit, and I will get them electronically. And I will do electronic inline grading. So the feedback you will get on these will be through Blackboard, which is why it's important to check your Madison College student email. One final note on this. Your last submission of the full report will be going to basically a verification service that's going to make sure that no part of your report matches directly some other student's submission or some other document that is out on the web. So it's important that you avoid plagiarism. It's important that you make this your own work and cite your sources appropriately, because we have had students in the past that have submitted reports that were plagiarized from other students or plagiarized from a website, and they're detected immediately upon submission. So the moral of the story is keep up with it each week. It's a small amount of work each week, and when it's all said and done, you can get a good grade on a fairly substantial project by continuing to chip away at it. I hope you find this fruitful. I hope you learn a lot by reading some of these technical reports. You're going to see it's a type of reading you maybe have never encountered in your life before. It's scientists talking to other scientists. But if you can understand what they're reading, that's your route to the top in the fire service. You'll have a better understanding of this than just about anyone else around. As always, if there's anything I can do to assist you with your learning on this project, please feel free to get in touch with me, and best of luck.